Hi, this is Chris Ying. Today I'm gonna be making something that I ate all the time as a kid. Every weekend before Chinese school, my dad would make this on Sunday morning. I make it now for my children all the time, although with a little bit of a modification. It is a hacked version of a Bing, which is a scallion pancake. It maybe resembles something closer to a Bing or a Bing, depending on how well you know Chinese food. If you don't know anything I'm talking about whatsoever, it's still gonna be delicious, even if none of that made sense. Here's the thing. In Taiwan, in China, in various parts of Asia, you have amazing flatbreads that you can eat for breakfast. A lot of them have egg in them, meat, all sorts of different fillings. They get pan fried like a crepe and rolled up, and they're super delicious. You have scallion pancakes, which are these kind of flaky, layered, pan fried, green onion filled pastries that are so aromatic and delicious. They are a little bit tough to make. There's a lot of laminating the dough. You've got to make sure you have different layers of fat and flour in there, and then they're a pain in the butt. And my parents weren't really baker people. And I don't know if my dad invented this thing, but we had it every weekend. And basically all he did was he took a flour tortilla, which is a version of what I just said, a flaky, delightful, fatty flatbread, and then he would just pan fry it, fill it with egg and scallion and pork floss, fry it crispy on both sides, chop it up, and he would make that like stacks of them, and we would just eat them in the morning and then all day at room temperature, or put them in the toaster oven or whatever. My kids love these. Here's the caveat. They don't really, my daughter will eat the green onions, eat the scallions. My son will not. They're really in it for this. This is pork floss. This is readily available at every Chinese market, Formosa brand. They come in smaller containers than this. It looks a little funky. It's a little intimidating if you've never bought this before, but I promise you, some of the most delicious stuff you can put in your mouth. Pork floss is marinated pork, marinated, I think, in soy sauce and sugar, and then it's just cooked down, fried, baked, whatever, until it becomes completely dried and desiccated and has this kind of pillowy cotton candy texture. It's a shelf-stable product. It's really, really delicious. Super umami, crunchy, crisp, and my kids go crazy for it. We top our rice porridge with this, and we fill pancakes with it. So this whole process is pretty quick. It'll take less time than it took me to babble on and on about it. So crack a couple eggs into a bowl, season with a little salt, and then I like to put a little drizzle of toasted sesame oil in there, which is often a part of these pancakes. I'm gonna make one with scallion, because that's the way I like it. But if your kids aren't gonna go for green onion, then just leave it out. It's still gonna be delicious. This is one of those ingredients I always feel I never would have shared this thing with my friends. As a kid, if they came over on a weekend, I would never offer them this dish because pork floss is kind of weird. It's a weird thing to tell your friends that you're eating pork floss. You know, the mind immediately goes to dental floss. I don't know if this is making any sense in this day and age where there's less, judgment and stigma and kids are cool foodies now. But like as a kid, I would be embarrassed to eat something like this. I was embarrassed all the way up until we did an episode of Recipe Club and we introduced Brian Ford to it. And he was like, dude, where has this been my whole life? It's incredible. My kids are extremely proud to eat pork floss. I can't turn my back on them because they'll come up and like reach up and grab it off the counter and just be like eating it like Winnie the Pooh, just getting their heads stuck in the bucket. These are, you can use whatever tortillas. They should be the size of your pan. These are some special tortillas from a recent episode of Dinner Time Live. We got these from Lawrence, Kansas at Javier Cabral's recommendation. They are pork fat flour tortillas. I say you can use whatever tortillas, but you should use good tortillas if you have access to them. Scallion into here. Good amount of oil. You want your pancakes to be crispy. And this is my favorite thing, whether it's crepes or these pancakes. I love to cook the eggs on the tortilla itself. So our eggs are down. That's gonna be both our filling and our binder, the way that cheese would bind the tortillas in a quesadilla. Nice hefty portion of pork floss. You know, I'm remembering this episode of Recipe Club that we did this recipe on now, and I even said just a sprinkle of pork floss if you like it on there, because I was nervous that Dave and Brian would think it was weird, that pork floss is weird. I don't know. Of course they wouldn't, because they're enlightened people. And I remember the feedback was like, this is great. The only thing that's wrong with your recipe is why would you say only a little bit of pork floss? It needs a ton of pork floss. You don't want to burn it, so medium, high heat. So yeah, my dad would sit there on Sunday mornings. He wouldn't sit there. We would sit there before we had to go to Chinese school. There'd be 2 bonuses to Chinese school on Sunday. One, my dad would make a big stack of these and I'd just gorge on them. The second bonus was after Chinese school, we got chicken teriyaki from the Japanese restaurant near the school. That looks pretty good. God, these tortillas are awesome. Javier Cabral is the editor of LA Taco, which I know right now is going through some tough times. They need subscribers. They know what they're talking about, and they introduce us to things like incredible tortillas from Lawrence, Kansas. All right, I think this is done. That is a pork floss pancake. You know, there are people who, I mean, I'm sort of this type of person, but you know the people who just like need a condiment when they're eating? Like you just can't without a dip. You could easily do this with either like a little black vinegar or some sambal, if you want a little spice to it. But this is it for, like, the kids will just eat the plain old pork floss pancake, no scallions, nothing. What a delight. The pork floss isn't as crispy anymore once it gets cooked this way, so you could actually sprinkle a little bit on top too. But my God. Flaky. Super, super umami. You should try to serve your kids one, unless they're like the extremely militant anti-green type of kids who will just reject anything flat out if there's a bit of green in it, then leave the green out. But you can't, it's not a pronounced scallion flavor. It's very mild. It gets cooked in there, and it adds a lot to the party here. But so that's it. Hacky scallion pork floss pancakes. I serve these at least once a week to my children. Stick around for more adventures in winning mealtime.